What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. Today's guest has a passion for design. He's an industry thought leader. He has extensive global experience in designing mixed-use developments. He is the Senior Vice President of Design for Equinox Brands at Equinox. Ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Richter. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Good to be here.
How do all those accolades feel coming out at you?
I'm tired. They make me feel tired.
well, that's a great place to start. Tired, because I would say tired. You've had a long journey and career, and I remember meeting you way back at in the Starwood days with that really awesome crew that did this diaspora of amazingness all over the industry. So it's been a long journey to get where you are now. And then another thing on the tired part, which I think we'll talk a lot about with respect to wellness and Equinox. So much of what you guys are doing at Equinox, and I want to hear it from your own words, is all about like restoring and regenerating. And I feel like that's missed in so many aspects of kind of what we do. So why don't we just start there to kind of contextualize, how do you restore? How is Equinox restoring?
Yeah, sure. And I appreciate that. I think early on, we wanted to figure out what we wanted to offer, or what our positioning or point of view wanted to be about a hotel. And we do movement well. We've done movement well for years, and we're known for movement, and we're known for fitness and that sort of thing. But really, at the end of the day, what we're selling is a longer REM cycle. Really, that's what it comes down to. And if you can provide someone a better night's sleep, and all of the accoutrement that go with that, whether it's the how you get to sleep or how you wake up, a longer REM cycle is a better recovery. And so how do you do that, right? So, and then that's a knowable science, right? Sleep science is knowable science, right? There's been a lot of good research into sleep, and a lot of things that you can execute from an architectural and interior design standpoint, and from a programming standpoint. How do you lean into that? And that's where we began.
I love that. And it's kind of like peeling an onion back to how do you get it. So also going into the long journey and bringing you back to Starwood. Yeah, I've spoken to many people, and it's a little, look, there's only so many things that you can really do with a hotel, right? So much of it comes down to like, okay, this is where I'm going to sleep. But I've heard people say that, and it's kind of sad in a way, that one of the most innovative things that has happened in our industry in a really long time was the development of the heavenly bed. And that was at Starwood, right? And that's like, oh my God, that's like a no-brainer. Like, that's what you're sleeping on. So how are you guys peeling back the onion and taking it to the next level and being so much more innovative for giving people the gift of deep REM sleep?
Well, that's where it started for me, is where it was Barry, of course. It was talking about what's important to the traveler. And at the time, no one spent money on beds. Like, they were an OS&E item that was often like a very, very, we got to have one, right? And Barry's like, no, you have to have the best one. And that's what people want. When the lights go off and you're in bed, that's really where it started. And I was like, okay, that stuck with me. And then I had done a project in the Park Lane Hotel in London with a young designer named Patrick Juan, who was a guy who, he was a design for Vespa, and he was a Philippe Starck protege, and he's this young, amazing French talent. This guy, him and his partner Sanjit, they run a firm out there who I still love, and I hired them to do this model room concept in London. And a big part of it was this sort of central command technology that really didn't exist at the time. It was like this sort of like, you put your key card in, it would have the room temperature and the menu, and it would control the room dynamics, and we developed it. But a critical aspect of that development was a guy called Zekin, and he was a French scientist who we brought in on the team, and he had this alarm clock that he had developed that would wake you up over an hour-long process.
It would like slowly brighten. Was that what?
It would slowly brighten. It would slowly change for him, it was like, it was alarm clocks. It was a thing you could buy, you plug it in, and it would slowly brighten and change the color temperature and slowly introduce sound into the morning wake up routine. It was a plug and play product. And we said, oh my goodness, how do we cook this into the wall? And so we worked with him to not only develop that piece and how it ties into the room mechanics, but then I'm like, well, what else do you want it to do? And he's like, well, if I could have my druthers, I would have it change the temperature. I would have it, do these other things that go to show you that I'm getting a longer REM cycle. So we built it into a model room. This was, I don't know, 1999, I don't know, way back, 2000, I don't know, early. And we built a model room, and the whole thing ended up being too expensive to get done, and it didn't happen for a variety of reasons. But we built it, and it worked. And I've been it's been the back of my mind for a while that the room could be tuned really to your body rhythms to allow you to have a better night's sleep. So I've been trying to solve it ever since.
And where are you in that process now, as far as what the product,
totally
the
solved.
sleeping product?
Yeah,
it's totally solved.
Totally
done.
Solved. We did it.
Check.
Done. It's done. We did about, I would say, out of the larger machinations of what's important for sleep science, and probably we did about half of what we wanted to do in the room. And even half is heroic, right? To get that done was, you got to convince a lot of people who build hotels that you're spending money in places you don't typically spend money on. And so I say it's about half done. The thinking around what can be done is definitely still percolating, and we piloted a bunch of stuff that we just simply couldn't afford. A lot of that has to do with circadian lighting and quantum harmonics and other things that we kind of toyed with that we still like to do, getting a more intelligent room. And then also getting into the psychology of dream analysis is something, a further sort of plateau that we'd like to get into. So we're about, I don't know, we're probably about a third of the way where we'd want to be in terms of what we can do. And so, yeah, no, we're still cracking at it.
And it must be an interesting and almost difficult proposition to sell to investors or other stakeholders in the property, because oftentimes it's not like you're sleeping. How do you really know? How do you measure that it's effective? I'm actually very curious about that.
Yeah, there's ways to digitally measure sleep cycles. There's wearables, and there's smart mattresses out there. We don't provide any metrics on the sleep, although we probably could and should in the future. But
would it be more like guest feedback? Like, oh my God, I had the best night's sleep. Are you getting feedback like that?
100%. We get that feedback daily. Yeah, no, and you got to understand, there's a lot in the room around sleep. So if you get a bad night's sleep there, I haven't heard that from a single guest, right? It's the most acoustically isolated product in the industry on purpose, right? It's the most it's removal of all the acoustical and light pollution. It's the materials. It's the methodology of sleep. It's the rituals that we develop to go to sleep, to wake up. It's all of it. And so, yeah, the feedback has been fantastic. And what's interesting is, yes, it's hard to answer your question. Yes, it's harder to convince a developer to do any of this, 100%. The good news is the developer was also our money. And so, that like early days of W, and it was easy to spend your own money. Here we had to convince our own internal group that was the right thing to do. Now it's super easy, because what happens now is we get developers globally showing up and very quickly saying, I get it, right? It's really hard to argue when it's abstract and it's just a spreadsheet and it's like, oh, well, no, this is important. When they come here and they stay here, and if they spend the night here, they're like, how quickly can we develop one of these? Like we turn them very quickly.
Especially probably for their own bedroom at their own home.
100%. And so what's interesting for low-hanging fruit for us is that I would say, 9 out of the 10 developers they're working with are saying, well, you're going to also brand our residential product, because this all makes sense. Everything you're doing here makes perfect sense for residential product.
Oh my goodness. So then you could have a sleep sanctuary by Equinox in your home.
100%.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's actually happening?
It's happening. Well, we're doing our own residences.
Oh.
So that's happening. But we talked about during pandemic, we talked about doing an off-the-shelf product that would you could put into an Airbnb, right? And so I talked to Airbnb, talked to Mari and a bunch of Airbnb folks, and they didn't get their heads around it. But I was like, all right, well, imagine you had a Airbnb that was walking distance from a club, right? You're that owner of that house. And you're like, okay, well, I'm going to make my house a Equinox infused house. And that means it's going to have sleep chambers and it's going to have the right food stocked in the fridge. And while you're staying with me, you also can walk to the Equinox or ride your bike to the Equinox, and you're a member during that time.
Oh.
And you start to think about real estate strategy in a whole different way. And so instead of like, and so in markets where you can't develop a 212 room tower, like in Berkeley, right? You buy a bunch of neighboring properties and you Airbnb them, right? And you make them associated with the club. You know, my inspiration for that is Hasidic Jews. The guys who
tell me
have
more.
Well, you know, if you're Hasidic, you need to live walking distance from temple.
Yes.
Right. And so communities are built around the walkability to temple on certain days. And so you think about how a community works and how a community has to be kind of together. And you're like, okay, well, you can apply that to anything.
And the Hasidic community as well has like figured out ways to expand that territory, but I forget what the wires are called that they put around to make their communities even bigger.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, I love that. I got to figure out. I'll put it in the show notes. I'll find out what that thing is. I read a great article on that. So that's super awesome. I didn't even think about that. Now, from the Airbnb perspective, they like
we're not doing it right. They all laughed at me, right?
No, I know they might not want to do it, but
someone's got to do it.
But if you can get someone, like I've met a guy in London, he owns a bunch of Airbnbs that he puts out. I don't know, he's got 20 or 40 or 50 or something like that. But if they're probably all within an area, so it could be some kind of cool capital expenditure that he might consider doing for his properties that he has.
A common interest.
Yeah.
Right? You need to lean into and exaggerate the common interest, right? There's a reason everyone's, you know, if you just build a hotel and people go to it, okay, they're there because I'm in Atlanta, right? And that's one way to go about it. But like if it's more purpose built, or if it's built around a common activity in that area, then you can service those things in a different way, and you can celebrate different parts of them, right? As a community.
And when I think of Equinox and just the community or tribe that you guys have built from movement or working out, and just that whole feel and experience, applying it to hotels, it just seems like such a slam dunk. And again, going back to the title of this podcast of defining hospitality, there's a way that people feel from the time that they're anywhere near it, because I still get buzzers like, you're near an Equinox. I'm like, oh,
we do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But and then you go in, and then how you feel when you're in there, and then just the whole experience. So when you think about just all the different people who are going into restore or going into spend energy, like, how do you define hospitality for those different tribes of people that are coming into your sanctuaries? Yeah,
I think, well, first you have to know who your tribe is, right? You got to understand who they are and what their hopes and dreams are. And then it's really it's a consideration of what they're going through. And it's kind of a celebration of their rituals and their routines. And people, you know, are waking up again to the fact that, oh, I should take care of myself. My health is important. My immunity is important. This is all very, topical and germane at the moment, right? People are saying, I want to live a different way, right? Me being shit-faced at the pool at a lounger is not the pinnacle of existence anymore. And that used to be how you would organize a hotel. You'd start with, I need to get 120 loungers at the pool for people to get shit-faced at, and I'm going to sell them drinks, and that's going to be my ROI. Is going to be all F&B and fuck the room and whatever with anything else, and that's it. You're coming here to get drunk, right? You're coming here to get drunk. That's it. And so I'm like, that's not it anymore. That's not how people want to be anymore. They want to travel with their families. They want to travel and feel healthier after they travel than less healthy, or they're trying to make their lives and their experiences better and more fulfilling. And if we recognize that, we recognize that most of the product out there, the sort of same product out there, is based on an ROI that was done back in the fucking 50s or 60s, or God even knows when. And that's how money's on top of money, just funneling it down the same ROI chain.
So once so you guys at Equinox and Related have clearly defined your tribe, your market, right?
Yeah,
You know who they are. You got your people. So then how do you help? I guess it's like, okay, so you know the people, you know the market, like you said, and then it's like, how do you define what hospitality is to that group?
Well, I mean, in a weird way, we don't define it for them in a way. We are enabling them, right? There's a way to be healthy. There's a way to live a healthy lifestyle, and it's often it's habits, it's routine, it's a method of attacking the day. I'm going to carve out 2 hours here. I do a thing in the morning. I do a thing at night. It's part of my routine, and those routines are near impossible on the road, right? If anyone who's listening, you're a traveler, I'm a traveler. If you want to try to stay fit on the road, the road hates you. The road hates you. It hates it. And it doesn't want anything to do with it. And it doesn't want to hear about it. You want to work out, you go to the fucking basement with the 400 square feet in the basement, and it's carpeted, and there's a creepy guy down there. There's no natural light, and it's not important. What you're doing isn't important, right? You're eating healthy isn't important, right? You're going to the fridge and get a Snickers, like whatever. Your sleep's not important. There's a couple next to you having a fight in the next room, and you can hear them. It's not important. What's important? You came here and you drank, right? That's the industry, and that's wrong. And it might have been right, 20 years ago, when that's what the pinnacle of life was, but that's not it anymore. Right. So I think everything needs to sort of rethink itself in terms of putting themselves in the shoes of all of this sort of new wave of people. And it's not age. It's not at all age. It's just a sensibility of people wanting to live a more fulfilling life.
I totally agree. And I agree, being on the road is not healthy, but I got to say that in the pandemic and having my wings clipped, all of that movement to and from the plane and running to this and that, like, I miss all that movement, and that, and now we're all getting back and our wings are re-sprouting, but I'm just feeling more active.
Right. No, I think people want to get their adult on hard. I think people want to oh my God, it's going to be, I think I had another talk where I'm like, it's going to be a flesh orgy. It's just going to be people going ape shit, like going in a wonderful way. Like,
I was like, it's going to be this bacchanal of just orgy, and
but togetherness is not an unimportant thing. Being with other people is part of being a human being. I think it's being social is important for your well-being, for sure. And so if you're traveling and you're going to a hotel and you're like, okay, well, I'm at this hotel, like, what do I do now? Okay, I go down to the restaurant and I have dinner, and I get drunk again or whatever, and then I go to my room. You're not really part of that community. Like if I go to the hotel in Seattle, I stay at the hotel in Seattle, and I'm in the hotel, and I leave the hotel, I didn't experience the community at all. There might have been like some local Seattle artist slapped on the wall, and they're like, oh, it's indigenous, right? Whatever. And so, but what's the unlock for us, and I think it should be an unlock for everybody on a variety of levels, is when I travel, I want to dovetail into that community, like really dovetail into that community. And what that means is that I need to be doing what those people in the community are doing. For us, that's fitness and wellness, right? So when you land in Hudson Yards and you came from Berlin and you go downstairs and you work out in the club, and we get about 60% of our hotel guests that use the club. Wow. And you get down and you use the club, and it is on fire, and the people are going hard, and people are fit, and they look great, and they're motivated, and they're all the locals who define that environment. It's a community of people. They go there every Monday. They see each other. You go to a group fitness class. There's camaraderie, and you dovetail into the community in a way that. don't get.
Did your office move from Flatiron over to Hudson Yards already?
Yeah, and in 2019, in August 2019, we opened the corporate office, the health club, the hotel, and the co-working in the same month, which was crazy.
And you moved there at the same time?
We did, yeah. We moved to the corporate office
wow.
at the same time.
So, because I remember being in Flatiron, my office was right there, and I remember bumping into you at the gym at weird hours and just, oh, hey, what's up? How's that working out? So, are you going down to that pumping gym in the hotel
when I'm healthy, yeah, for sure. We're employees. We encourage our employees to go down, right? So we have built in on the corporate floors. We've built in private lockers for every employee. So if you bring your shit to the office, you can just dump it in a locker. You don't have to throw it at your desk, and it's your locker, so you can be your shoes there all the time. So we're absolutely encouraging people to do that. We also encourage people to bring their own food. We've got full kitchens on every floor. Cooking kitchens, we've got pantries on every floor, hydration stations. We lean into how to make a healthy office here at corporate, and we're real proud of what we did.
That's awesome. Actually, as you're saying that, I just read this article today. This guy Josiah McKenzie, who I just met at a SCIF conference for the first time, he wrote this really cool article. I'll send it to you after, and I totally agree with it. I've been saying it. I've been speaking around this in a lot of different ways. But I think he really hit the nail on the head. And the title is Why Hospitality is the Best Place to Work, Invest, and Innovate Now and in the Years Ahead. So I would just like to take your temperature on that one. Do you agree strongly? Like, how are you feeling as far as hospitality being the best place to work, invest, and innovate over now and in the years ahead?
Strongly agree. However, what is hospitality anymore, right? So everything's hospitality these days. Everyone's racing towards this same space, right? Whether there's like a Citibank at Union Square. You know this thing? It's awful. I don't know who designed it, but it's everything. It's like it's a cafe and it's a lounge and it's an arcade. It's anything it needs to be. And that's just a bunch of panicked executives going, we need to be this new thing. And this new thing is this other space, right? Where you are welcomed and you can lounge and you can work and you can eat and you can chill and you might take a nap. And like, it's this, and you're seeing offices kind of turn into this space, and you see offices being like, oh, we need to look at hospitality. And you see, it used to be that hospitality looked at retail, right? Hospitality used to suck. And they used to be like, oh, retail is doing all the innovative stuff. And that's how Barry got me. He got me out of Nike because I was doing retail stuff. And now everyone's catching up. Everyone's, every place is starting to look like Soho House, right?
Yeah.
Right. Everything's a lounge. Everything's got like the
low cocktail tables,
low coffee tables
that my back hurts at working at.
Right.
But that's just me getting older and not doing a yoga class at Equinox before.
True. I'll send you some links.
Well, it's interesting. So I just spoke to Dina Lamana. I don't know if you know her. She's at HOK, and she said that she's getting pulled into as the hospitality person into every other silo to see everything through the hospitality lens. And as you're talking about, I forgot you were at Nike. So retail, it's totally true, because Barry also pulled Teresa and Ave and a whole bunch of other people, and Hillary, and from Pottery Barn.
That's right.
And did W.
So when I interviewed, I tell the story. I don't know if I probably told you this story. When I interviewed with, I got a call from a headhunter who was calling for Starwood, and I wasn't working. It was after 9/11. My mom passed. I went to Japan for a while. I was like, I don't want to work, and so I didn't work for like 8 months. And I got a call from a headhunter, and she's like, hey, you want to do hotels? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never done a hotel. I don't know. I'm a retail guy. And she goes, that's exactly what they're looking for. Someone with zero experience. So I was like, great. So I went to interview with Barry, and he said the same thing. He's like, I don't want you to have any knowledge of the industry. Wow. And that's a detriment. I don't want you to have done a hotel before. He goes, I like Nike Town. That's what I want to do. I want to do stuff that's like Nike Town, which is experiential, that's immersive, that's thought-provoking, that bends things and breaks things. He goes, that's what I want to do. So I was like, yeah, great. And then what's funny, when I left hospitality in a weird way, I'm still kind of in hospitality, I guess. When I left Schrager's office to go to Equinox, Harvey's like, I'm like, look, Harvey, I got zero fitness experience. I'm gonna get like zero. And he's like, that's what we're looking for. So, right. So twice, my ignorance has propelled my career.
It reminds me, I love that. There's a book I read years ago. It's called Rookie Smarts. And it's like how someone who is new to the business, either just out of college or an intern, or someone from a different sensibility with no experience, that they look at things through with fresh eyes and no prejudice. And it's interesting how you've done that. So like, if you go back to like mentors of yours, who do you think was like the biggest mentor or course corrector in your career path and journey?
I've been super, I mean, like, I got to say, I've been super fortunate. You know, all the way early on, it was John Hoke. John Hoke is I think he runs all creative at Nike now. He's a genius. And he was one of the youngest guys at Nike. And he was an architect, but he was dyslexic. So he didn't write a lot. He just drew everything. He was drawing. He just draw everything all the time. And he was the guy. I would be working all-nighters at Nike, and he would come by my desk. And, as an architect, you just do all-nighters. That's what you do. It is how you get ahead. And it's dumb, but that's what you do. And so I did an all-nighter, and I'm at my desk. I'm looking like I did an all-nighter. And he comes by. He's like, and I'm working through lunch. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just, working on this thing, and I'm trying to do something cool, and I'm trying to get ahead." And he goes, "Well, that's not how you get ahead." He goes, "You want to get ahead, you go join the softball team. Go run at lunch with the guys. Go play basketball. Go to the gym. Go breathe the brand." Wow. And that's how you get ahead. Live the brand. And so I did. I joined a run club. I started working out the gym, and that is
in Oregon.
In Oregon, Beaverton, yeah. And I joined the softball team, thinking like, softball, how hard could it be, right? I'm on the softball team, and the guys on the softball team are all ex-Seattle Mariners.
Oh my God.
They took softball really seriously, and I was like, way out of my element. So I was like, I'll just watch.
And on the running side, were you like channeling your inner Prefontaine?
Yeah, I was a shitty runner. I've always been a shitty runner up until Nike, and I played soccer. I ran a little in college and high school. I was never good at it. And Nike, joining the run, kind of little impromptu club, they taught me everything I needed to know about Nike. And they got me to that point of reaching that first runner's high, which is very elusive for a lot of people. And the first 2 weeks of running suck, no matter whatever, they suck. You just got to get through them. And once you hit like week 2, 3, you get a moment where if you do it well, you get that moment of runner's high, which you chase, and you can recreate, and it's magical. And once you get there, you like, okay, I can learn technique now, and I can learn all these other things. But yeah, that was Nike. That was Nike leading the way there. After Hogue, it was Sternlicht. I mean, Sternlicht, I can't say enough about that guy. I mean, he's he was kicking down doors early on. He recognized that the industry needed something unique and different, and he's passionate for designers and architects, and passionate about industry and what's disrupting. And I mean, to have that guy just be like, "What do you want to do?" Be able to be like, "Hey, this is this firm, yeah, we'll push her. What do you think?" And he's like, "They're great, whatever." They did one hotel in Montreal, but they were young. And he was just like, "Awesome. Let's find people who've never done hotels. Let's find architects and designers who are just outside the industry. Let's shake some shit up." And he was really supportive and really appreciative of me coming at things from a different angle. And I can't say enough about that mentor. He's called me a handful of times. The older I've gotten, just shoot the shit and get some off the cuff advice. And I have a lot of admiration for that guy.
Wow, he's amazing. I mean,
incredible human being. And after Barry, I mean, I still, as difficult as Ian is, I still got to props to Ian for who he surrounds him with, what he's willing to do, the ability to work at like just the upper echelon of everything all the time. His command of what's cool and what works and what doesn't work, and he's just an incredible visionary. And with Ian, you at the time you would get Anda and Michael, his lieutenants were, I mean, those are some of the finest human beings on the planet. Andre, I mean, I can't say enough about her. I've talked about her a lot, and she was my mentor for a hot second, and just an incredible human being. And then of course Harvey, I would say, so Harvey Spivak, just a visionary early on in the industry. on our from a wellness perspective, you got to understand, like 14 years ago, you gotta remember, fitness was garbage. It was an industry that was forgotten. It was an industry that was like, it was 24-hour fitness and like sport, like primary colors and sports clubs, and like it was just miserable. And so Harvey recognized early on that there was an opportunity to do something to make this a luxury thing. And he saw it early, and I gotta give it up to him for providing all of the runway to do it.
Do you know what's amazing as you're talking about those four men? I think it's four. Hoke.
I mean, this
Sternlight.
There's hundreds, quite frankly.
Okay, so there's more.
Those are my favorites.
But like, if you look at those, let's just say those four, and the lieutenants and the whole support structure around it, building and designing and furnishing hotels is a transaction, right? And in the end of the day, it's a commodity within real estate. But of those four, from a retail perspective and the hospitality perspective, they put so much weight in design. And I think that on the fringes, so they're kind of leading the way, the pathfinders. Then on the fringes, you have folks who are just like, okay, well, does this pencil out, right? Okay, let's do this. But I really feel like it's those kind of prime movers, if you will, that are really shifting and innovating our industry.
I would agree with that, and I would say I think there's a stock index out there that follows companies that put value on design, and they show you how it over indexes over just a regular old company.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a design focused one out there somewhere. Yeah. Look, I think Nike, the designers were gods. I mean, they were gods. Like on the campus, if you were a footwear designer at Nike, I mean, people would be like, "Oh my, you were like a rock star." It was amazing. You were given like you get the prime parking spot. You'd have a whole floor. People treated you with such reverence. I mean, because there's only a handful of people that can do that well. And early on, I got spoiled, and that recognizing that design was important. Design should have a place at the table. Design really touches all disciplines, right? You can't just silo out in design and like go in a corner and design something. It has to be in concert with all the other disciplines that have to interact with your design, that have to build your design, that have to like live with your design 10 years from now. Like, you can't do it in a bubble, right? And I think that makes you as a company, if you recognize that design is important, it has to be at the forefront, and it has to liaison with everything else.
I totally agree. And I'm also glad that there are those trailblazers, and obviously like the Johnny Ives and the Steve Jobs.
Sure, yeah. I almost did a hotel with Ives.
No way.
Yeah, dude. All right. So I was at Schrager's office, and he's like, "Who do you want to work with?" I'm like, "Johnny fucking Ives." And he's like, "Who?" And I'm like, "The guy who does the Apple stuff." And he's like, "All right, yeah, call him." So we call Ives, and I get Ives on the phone, and I'm like sweating, and I'm like, "Oh, sir," whatever. He wasn't sir at the time, but I'm like, I'm sure I was calling him sir. And I'm like, I'm with Schrager. I want to do a hotel with you. And he's like, "Fuck yeah." And he was into it. And so for like a week and a half, we were like brainstorming about hotels. I'm like, "Oh, dude, I mean, cloud nine, like, thinking about the technology infrastructure, thinking about what Apple could bring to the table, all the interfaces. Oh my God, like a little tear in my eye." And so about a week and a half go by, and he calls me up, and he's like, "Yeah, Steve's not gonna let me do it."
Right. Well, now he's not there anymore.
Maybe, and now he's not there. Well, I could probably do it now. I'm sure. I'm sure I doubt he'd remember me, but I could call him back up. I'm sure he'd be into it. Him and Lovegrow would do something in a minute. They'd be great.
To just like be able to peek at what's going on between his ears, right?
Yeah, incredible. Just incredible.
It's amazing. Okay, so talking about all these mentors and amazing mentors that you've had, as you look at like your position where you are at Equinox and Related, how are you in a way honoring all of that and paying it forward with your team?
I mean, there's not much of my team left, sadly. We burned through quite a few people we furloughed for a long time during pandemic, as long as we could. We try to keep people in healthcare, but I had a 25-person team on the club side. I'm down to 4. Right. Whoa. Yeah. Brutal. I mean, we have, 106 leases we had to renegotiate. So, it was a tough go for industry, any industry and hospitality in general, but the club side, any industry that relied on people coming physically to a space, that was hard. And so we had a rough year and a half where we lost a lot of people. And so, yeah, no, I don't have the opportunity yet. I'm like, last man standing, and I'm not last man, but it's a skeleton crew. And now we do everything. Now we're back to back to the drawing board with you have to do everything. So we have an opportunity now. What's nice is that during the pandemic, we'd heard that the statistic was most people that had left their jobs or left their industries wanted to get into health and wellness to some degree. So I think we're in a position now where we could certainly, not today, but probably in a few months, start really hiring people again to grow this thing. And it's mentorship. It's making sure that you hire someone that has the right intention, that believes in it theoretically, that drinks the Kool-Aid to some degree, or understands the value of the Kool-Aid. They don't have to drink it, but they have to understand the value of it. I guess. Right. So yeah, no, we're again, the staff is thin at the moment.
Well, that's good because, going back to that article that I referenced, it's why hospitality is the best place to work, invest, and innovate. I've been saying that so many people left hospitality for all the reasons that you just said, right? The gathering places just got eviscerated.
Yeah.
However, we're so starved for good people that if you come in and you're passionate and a fit and you love it, the trajectory, the career path trajectory is so steep right now.
Yeah.
It's an amazing place to start, especially if you can get hooked up under a great mentor.
I totally agree with that. Right? Your ground, it's not just us, it's a lot of folks. You're on ground floor. If you're in now, if you get in the next year, right, it's like getting on the ground floor, like no joke. It's now you're going to be, like you come in here, you're gonna have 20 hotels to deal with, right? It's going to be you're gonna have a problem, but you're gonna have a tremendous opportunity.
Speaking on the health and wellness side as well, I was speaking with Sarah Clemson, who
good people.
She's at Hyatt and she's doing like all the Miraval stuff. But she said something that was really interesting to me. Like if you're going to go stay at a Miraval, right? It's health and wellness, or
I'm not, but go ahead.
Oh no, but if you were going to, they kind of they onboard you before your stay, because you mentioned what made me think of it is you said intention. Yeah. So they're like, what's your intention? What do you want to get out of this? And it's like, it's a weird thing. It makes total sense to ask, but it seems like strange to ask that to someone coming to a hotel, because if you know what their intention is, you can design everything else around it.
I guess we find that guests don't like that. They don't want to commit to a particular thing. We have offerings right as a booking engine goes out. Once you book, we immediately say, okay, here are all the classes that are happening at property while you stay here. Would you like us to get you into a cycling class? Would you like us to get you a group fitness class? Can we help you schedule all that stuff ahead of time? But we try not to the guests be like, okay, tell us all your preferences. And when you get here, we're going to hammer you with those preferences. Like we try to be more like, it's here for you should you decide, and we're here to help you engage in any of it. But we don't want to we try not to over market you, right? Like the trick with our we have a very well-heeled crowd, and they're a little sick of being marketed to. So we try to not do that. And not that what they're doing is marketing, but we find that it's a fine line to over ask
right.
what your intention is.
Yeah, I've never.
Because they're not always good. The intentions are not always good.
Right. Oh, right.
Right. True. Not always good.
Okay. I totally get that. Yeah. But I think about if I've ever been on a retreat or something, it's a purposeful stay where I want to get something out of it. I want to journey inward, kind of learn about myself a bit more. And I set an intention for that. So I guess to think about staying at going on a wellness retreat, if you will, if it wasn't just the business travel, it would be an interest. If you could dissect that, it would be interesting to ask and just see without being marketed to.
Well, we want to think about the activities as performance based, right? So if you have a baseline that you want to improve upon, whether it's sleep or VO2 max or your mile or whatever it is, we can help you improve your performance of a thing, right? As a metric. Yeah, we could do that for sure.
Okay, so then when you talk about performance-based and metrics, another thing, this was from a couple of years ago when we were talking, where you guys, when you're looking, you said something about looking at the programming of, let's just say like a health club, right?
Yeah.
And by having a cafe here, or this kind of machine there, this kind of class here, you guys have really gotten it down to a science of return on investment, return on time.
Yeah.
And like, how were you just blown away when you came into that at Equinox, and by virtue of, I guess it would be related, coming from Schrager?
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, early on at W, we wanted, like, W was all about keeping people on property, right? It was about seeing everything that's going on. And like, we had the living room at W, and from the living room, you could see the bar, you could see the restaurant, you could see the elevator banks. It was a hub of activity. And what we realized is that we wanted people to stay on property to go to the restaurants and the bars, and that's great for the property owner, right? More stay on property. And so that's sort of like visual cornucopia, if you will, of applied to how we lay out clubs, because what we find is that if you are scripting the pathway of someone moving to the club, and they're able to see someone taking a Pilates class or a Pilates lesson, and they'd be like, I don't know what that is, but they walk by it, or they walk by a training session, or they walk by a group fitness studio where there's a class going on, and they see it, they're much more likely to engage in that, right? Because it doesn't feel sort of like alien or unique to them. They're more willing to try it. And so it's the same as the hotel property. It's like, how do you just visually create this sort of landscape of opportunities, essentially? How do you create this, what we call a visual cornucopia, right? It's like, I'm always able to look at something and see something else, another activity going on. And so we're now blurring those lines between the club, the hotel, an office lobby, an F&B space. Like, how do you blur all of those lines so you're kind of seamlessly walking from one experience to the next?
Okay, and then so as you're thinking about that and where you're plotting forward as you rebuild your teams and kind of get more deals happening in the pipe, what's exciting you most about the future?
Well, I mean, I only got to do one hotel right here. So I only got to do one, right? We had a bunch of them. We had a whole ton of hotels we were working on. And so, what's exciting is that we finally, after many, many years of talking about it, have a proof of concept. And we haven't had that before. We talked about, we could talk a good game, but we couldn't prove it. Now that we're open and running and doing very well, it's very easy to prove now. And so the argument about to a developer, wherever they are in the world, is much easier to make. And so it's less of a fight, and it's more about how do you maintain quality, how do you continue to innovate on it. And I think because we're only able to do the small percentage of the stuff that we'd like to do, like sleep, I think we probably, again, I think we already did a third of what we could have done.
Yeah.
But there's, we probably could have done a third of what we could have done on all of it. And so what's exciting is the other 2/3 that we've been talking about, that we've already either designed and couldn't afford, how this works into a resort, how this works into a smaller format, how this works into a more luxurious format, there's so many different ways that this can manifest. That's exciting. And when we look at like an 80-room property in Marbella, or we look at a high density thing in Japan, it's all very exciting because it's a new philosophy.
It totally is. And I'm super excited. And when you think about the pitch, so you have developers they've acquired this land, they want to build something there. What is the value proposition to a developer? Like, what kind of conversations do you have with them about like why Equinox makes the most sense?
Yeah, sure.
What were the hooks that were like really getting them interested and excited?
Well, the first hook is certainly the brand, right? The first hook is saying to them, there's a history of 30 years of fitness and wellness excellence that has been bar none top of the industry, right? You can point to that. And what that means is that we have an existing member base and a member base that's no longer with us that knows, understands, and has spent money with the brand, right? So instead of having a marketing pool of not like-minded yahoos, right, in your marketing pool. You might have a ton of them, but there's no communal thing between them, no commonality, right? So you don't really have a pool. You've got a database. Like we have a pool. We have a pool of like-minded individuals that are all fundamentally optimistic. You need to be optimistic to be in this.
It's your tribe.
It's your tribe. We generally have a tribe that we can talk to and point to, and who trusts us to give them product that they can rely on. So that's fantastic, right? We got a baked in brand recognition. We don't have it in the hospitality space. We're trying to get in the hospitality space, but we have it out there. So those folks are generally well-heeled, generally early adopters of technology. They're typically a 50-50 split male female. They're the right money demographic. So they're the creme de la creme of people you want to try to get in terms of your market base. So that's built in. What's tricky with developers is that we have 106 locations and we don't want to cannibalize ourselves. So that makes it tricky from a real estate perspective, right? So if you can't just drop a hotel anywhere you need a hotel, you got to be considerate of the existing facilities that are active and running and doing well. So you can either buy air rights, you can find shit next to them, you can do it that way, or you can be smart about new markets and you're developing a club and a hotel at the same time, which is ideal, right? So that makes it tricky. What that trickiness also is a tremendous advantage for a developer, right? So what a developer does is when they do, typically mixed use to sort of spread the risk around, they want to have a retail podium, A, because the municipality wants them to activate base, or B, they don't have another use for the ground floor, right? And so what we do as a brand, and we're one of the last big box tenants out there, right? Who's taking 35,000 square feet?
Nobody.
Who? Whole Foods? Okay, maybe Whole Foods, right? There's only so many of those you can do.
Trader
And
Joe's.
then Trader Joe's, sure. Grocery stores will do that size, but then it quickly drops off, right? It used to be that Gap would take it, right? That is not happening anymore, right? Retailers don't want 30,000, 35,000 square feet. It's a ridiculous thing to try to take on as a retail tenant. And so as a developer, you're like, well, I got to build all this retail, and I don't know. And they slap an Apple logo on it. They're like, oh, Apple will take it. You're like, Apple doesn't want your shitty thing. They're, whatever. They got their own things going on. And so there's the developers are sitting on all this like empty retail. And so us coming in as an anchor tenant, not only does that take off a big hunk of ground floor, it activates the ground floor, it puts footfall on the ground floor, and then it also entices other retailers to take the adjacent retailers. So all of a sudden, now all of a sudden, when we did our club in the marina in San Francisco on Union Street, we opened the club. A week later, Nike opened up a retail shop 2 doors down. Oh. Right? They knew we were
halo.
And a halo effect. And so we argue with the developers that we are now a halo effect. And what that means is that you can not only get all these retail tenants sorted out, but you can also talk about your project as a wellness project. You can talk about how your building is a community project, it's a wellness project, it's a project about sustainability, right? Because ultimately we don't turn over. We take long-term leases. We're invested in that location, and so that's a tremendous advantage for developers. The hard part is we're acoustically psychotic, and so being acoustically psychotic means you got to be smart about how you build your walls, smart about where you put your elevators. You got to be smart about your facade. You got to be smart about a lot of things, your mechanical systems. And that's expensive day one, and a little bit more expensive to operate sometimes day 2, and that's an ask, and that's unique.
I want to go back in time to when you were playing on the Nike softball team. Was that your first job out of college?
Yeah, it was. I had an internship. So I got waitlisted at the GSD at Harvard. And I wanted to go to Harvard my whole life, and I got waitlisted, and I was excited. I got waitlisted. It was MARC2 for those listeners, because MARC2 they only accept about 15 people, and typically about one of them is an American, maybe 2. So I was psyched to be waitlisted, but I really wanted to get in, and so I got into Columbia, and I deferred Columbia. I should have gone to Columbia, but I didn't go. And so I had to wait the summer to see if I got into the GSD, and so I had 3 months to burn, and I had designed footwear in high school and in college to pay the bills. So I was, on the side, I'd be doing work for Saucony and Converse just to pay the bills. And so when I was like, well, I'll do footwear. I'll make some money and try to save up some money for Harvard. And I applied to this internship at Nike, and I got in. And I got out there, and they're like, "Are you going to design shoes? Or are you going to design spaces?" And I was like, "Okay, I didn't know the spaces was an option here. Thought I was just going to design shoes for 3 months and make some money." And so I was a part of John Hoke's image design team, and that was my first real. I was an intern, all the intern stuff that goes with it. And that was my first gig. And after 3 months, GSC said, "No, yeah, you're not going in here." And so I was sad. You suck, right? You suck. And right, yeah, you're no good. And then Nike was like, "You just want to stay?" And I was like, "All right," it worked out. And they're like, and at the end of the summer, they're like, "You still have the choice. You still, if you want to, you can still go be a footwear designer. Or you can go to this other thing, which was image design." And at the time, you got to understand that the footwear designers were like, they're driving like vintage Ferraris and shit in the parking lot. You're like, "Oh, do I want to be a rock star?" But I ended up picking the architecture route just because of my education.
Totally. Well, as you were talking about playing softball on the team with like a bunch of Mariners, right? There were former Mariners.
Yeah.
I once my stepbrother, he asked me to play on his dad's, it was like from Riverdale High School or whatever. Yeah. It was like a dad's softball team. And I was playing second base, and center field was Tiki Barber. Okay? Oh my God. So everyone else was just like a normal human, but he was there.
Oh my God.
And I just remember one time, and I played baseball. Like, I love baseball. I'm moderately athletic. There was just like a little blooper hit kind of over me. I could have I was running back to get it. I would have gotten it just right in the grass there, or shallow grass. I felt the ground like moving, and Tiki Barber was playing like deep center, and he, like, I was sprinting to get it, but like in like, I don't know, 8 or 10 steps, he was right there, and I thought he was going to take me out. He caught it, and then in the same motion threw it at home because someone was holding up on someone was tagged up and was going to get there, and he, in one motion, it was so athletic, he threw it and nailed the guy at home. And it was just incredible. So going back to your experience, like, it's you with all these crazy athletes playing softball. Let's say the Aaron that I'm talking to right now, the Aaron of today, 2022, teleported back there, and you spoke to your younger Aaron on that team. Yeah. What advice do you give yourself?
It's okay you lose this game. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I would say don't do anything traditionally. Don't go down the road well traveled. And I would say, stay on this sort of path. And my path is very, very different than most of my colleagues' paths. And I'm very grateful for it, just because it's not the traditional path. Like, I could have just went and worked for Meyer's office or Peter Eisman's office, or I could have done, you could have been a lackey for a famous architect for 5-10 years. This is what most people do. They go work, and then they're like, if they're lucky, they get enough clients, they steal them, and they do their own firm. And then when they're 50 or 60, they start their own practice, and they start doing good work. And for me, it was like, okay, that's going to take too long. I don't want to do that. I want to do something. I wanted to have an impact sooner, and I wanted to have a larger impact rather than just project based. And so a lot of times, on Nike, you got to understand, as an architect, you're trained to be the agency, right? You're trained to be the person doing the work. At Nike, you're in-house and you are on the client side. And so all my buddies, they're all working for architecture firms, and they're all just like, oh, they're spending other people's money. And Nike, you spend your own money. And so you have to be way closer to how the pro forma works. You have to be way closer to the project numbers. And so that was a whole mindset shift that was good, that was out of the norm, that I was on in-house on a client side thing, which was really atypical. And then I went back to the agency side for a while, and I worked for a couple of companies, and then I went back, and I like the client side better because, I can tell the money what to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I can't do that on the client side. It's too late. You're too late. Mm-hmm. And the client's like, well, on the agency side, you're too late. On the client side, you can define how you spend the money. You can go hire the talent. You can manage the talent. You can control a lot more that what happens in the world if you're on this side. So I would say, it's my younger self, stay on that side. Don't try to go up the ivory tower and be a poet. You're going to be, you're going to be this happy, and you're going to affect this much. It's going to be great, but it's going to be this much. And for me, I always wanted to affect more. It was weird. It's actually from a footwear moment I had. I designed this Saucony shoe called the A4. The tongue was too big. Didn't work. It was fine. It was okay. But I remember I was driving around Newport and I saw a dude running in one. I saw a dude running in a pair of my shoes. And I can't even tell you. I was like, my heart was racing. I was like, oh, this is my shoe. Just one of my shoe. And like, it was an incredible moment. And then when I rewrote my application to GSD the second time, didn't get in a second time, by the way. I rewrote it. I talk about that moment about saying, yes, your design is this, but it affects something much, much larger. And I always had that in my head that I wanted to affect a larger, I wanted design to impact a larger portion of what I would be able to do otherwise if I was just like designing in a shop somewhere.
I love that. Huh. Stay on target.
Stay on target. Stay on target. Yeah. Stay on target. You pulled it off. Stay on target. Stay on target.
We gotta, you got good by practicing target practice with your T16 on Womp Rats in Tatooine, right?
That's right. No bigger than whatever.
We had to get the Star Wars reference in.
Date ourselves.
So what, as far as your restoration and your, obviously your routines, I've heard you say routines a lot, and like, what is your morning routine? Like on a typical morning, do you have a routine?
3 kids. You kidding me? I'm like eyeballs and Fruit Loops. I don't know. My morning routine is when my wife wakes up typically before I do, bless her heart. And she's up doing stuff. She usually tries to get running in the morning before we even wake up. My routine is terrible right now. It's not good. It's out of balance. I had an amazing routine during COVID. I had a very healthy COVID, oddly enough, or very healthy pandemic that I took to running quite a bit during the pandemic, and that routine was fantastic. And if you can take an hour at 2 p.m. and go for a run, it's epic. It's magical. And I've fallen off that. Now what I do now, when I'm between injuries, I go downstairs and I've got an incredible trainer at Hudson Yards, and he's opened my eyes to a bunch of stuff in terms of my movement and my physicality. You get old and crusty, shit just starts falling apart. And a lot of it's just maintenance and recovery and making sure that you can continue to the movement. And you don't have to throw as much weight around, but you want to stay limber and active. And I definitely do that. I've got a carbon hardtail that I throw around Piermont every now and then, which is fun. I'm threatening the Piermont guys are threatening me with a road bike, so I should probably take that up at some point. I'm leaning into all the old man sports. So I'm like, paddle boarding and like, I feel
low impact,
kayaking, backpacking, right? Those are going to be my sports going forward.
I used to run so much more. And this Memorial Day, it was my wife who'd never ran a race, my son and myself. There was a 5K in town.
Nice.
And my goal was to just finish and not injure myself.
There you go.
I didn't get the time I wanted, but it was so funny. My son, who'd never run a race before, he came in second in his age group and 30 overall.
Wow.
My wife, he's 12.
Epic.
My wife, she'd never done a race, and I was talking to some other dads as we were running, and she kind of pulled up ahead of me, and I was still talking. I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and beat her. And so in the last, I don't know, half mile, 3/4 of a mile, I caught up. I was right on her wing. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to beat her. I'm going to finish with her. So within 100 yards, I pulled up. She had earbuds in.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and we were smiling and running. And then 10 feet from the end, she just took off and fucking beat me.
You deserved it on so many levels, though. You were like,
damn you, Alexa Ryan.
Yeah.
It was super fun.
Yeah. Well, I had injured my back, so I didn't participate. But my family, my wife and my oldest, they did a 5K together. And, I woke him up. It was all my idea, right? So I woke him up and it's 5K, get up. And I made him run this 5K. and they're bitching the whole way, getting the bibs on, they're angry, and they do it and they're done with it. And then they couldn't be more proud. Like it was like, oh, look what we did. I'm like, you would have been asleep right now if I didn't kick your ass out of bed. But now they want to do them. Now they're kind of into them. So yeah, no, it's great. Running for me has been sacred. I can't do it as much as I'd like to anymore. So it's going to be cycling, and it's going to be hiking and that kind of shit.
It's also good in that I did my first race in years, right? And whatever, it's a 5K. It wasn't the time I wanted. But the thing I love about running, and it goes back to your kind of taking your own path. Yeah. It's all about me or you or whoever's doing it. Now I have a time, and now I can run and improve that based on whatever I want. Like running is sacred, and I miss it a lot. So it's good to get back into it. Now I just don't want to get injured.
Yeah, no doubt. And what's interesting is my summers as a teenager, I was a Boy Scout, and I taught at this thing called Lone Tree Scout Reservation up in New Hampshire, and I taught riflery and archery. And I was with this British SAS guy who was my mentor there, and I learned a lot about riflery and whatever. But the riflery in and of itself it was interesting, but it wasn't what was interesting to me. What was most interesting was both of those sports require body control, require breath control, require mental focus, require you to control your body. And it was my first way to say, oh, if I looked inward, I can improve. And running is the same way. Running is like, it's a battle with yourself, right? All the time. It's a battle with, is my form right? Is my mental head, am I in the right headspace? Am I picking my knees up? Am I, are my hands loose? Are my shoulders back? Is my chest, all the technical aspects of it to make you a better runner. You can focus on those things and have a better run for sure.
Totally. Well, now you've inspired me to put on my shoes this afternoon and go for a run, even though normally I'm a morning runner. So Aaron, if people wanted to reach out or learn more about what you got going on, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, don't ever contact me. No, I'm please don't call me for sure. And I get a lot of like nonsense emails about, and I appreciate it. People are vendors and they want to sell shit. I get it. But I mean, LinkedIn's the best way to do it. If someone wants to say something or reach out, is the best way. I don't carry business cards anymore. I think that's kind of over. And so LinkedIn is my network. It used to be, I'm on Instagram, but I don't love it anymore. I kind of resent it. So, LinkedIn's the best.
Great. And then as you guys are rebuilding and hiring again, I guess it would be like careers.equinox.com or something like that. They can find things there.
Yeah, well, we definitely post there. I don't really post much. Once I have a role that I want to fill, I have a pretty good bench I could pull from if I need to. But again, I'm always looking for talent. I'm always looking for people out there that are hungry and innovative and doing good things. I'm a very, very tough critic. So if you show me your portfolio, be prepared to tell me that I'll tell you that it sucks. And I'm going to tell you how it can be better. I'm not just going to say it sucks and kick you out. I'm going to tell you how it can be better. And so, but I'm going to be honest. I'm very, very brutal when it comes to design.
Great. Well, and I think you've learned from some of the best. So I want to say thank you so much for your time. This has been freaking awesome.
Oh, no, I love it, Dan. I always love talking to you. I appreciate it.
It's awesome. And then also, I just want to thank our guests. This keeps growing and growing and growing. So if this changed the way that you think about design or hospitality or wellness, please pass it along. It's all word of mouth. And we look forward to seeing you next time.